was supposed to be a typical appearance on The View. Don Johnson, the seasoned actor best known for his role in Miami Vice, was scheduled to promote his latest projects and catch up with the co-hosts. However, things quickly took a turn when an unexpected confrontation occurred between him and Joy Behar, one of the show's most outspoken hosts. What started as a simple interview spiraled into a fiery exchange that shocked the audience and left many wondering what happened behind the scenes. The moment of tension began innocently enough. Johnson was talking about his long career in Hollywood, sharing stories of his iconic role as Sonny Crockett. The audience was enthralled, and the conversation seemed light-hearted. But then, Joy Behar, never one to shy away from asking tough questions, interrupted with a pointed comment that seemed to catch Don Johnson off guard. It was a subtle jab, but one that set the stage for what was about to unfold. The topic at hand was the changing landscape of Hollywood, especially when it came to how male actors in their 60s, like Johnson, were being perceived in an age of youth-driven media. Johnson, as expected, responded thoughtfully, giving his perspective on how things had shifted in the industry. But when Behar asked about the challenges of aging in a business that celebrates youth, her tone shifted, and she made a remark that seemed to rub Johnson the wrong way. "So, Don, do you feel like you're just a nostalgia act now, just cashing in on the past?" Behar's question wasn't mean-spirited, but it was direct. The entire panel went silent for a moment, and you could almost hear a pin drop in the studio. Johnson's expression hardened, and he paused for a moment before responding. It was clear that he wasn't thrilled with the question, but he chose to take the high road, initially responding with a measured tone. "I wouldn't say it's about nostalgia, Joy," Don Johnson said, his voice steady. "I think it's about evolving and adapting, but still holding on to the things that made me who I am." The audience was still with him, and for a second, it seemed like the conversation might get back on track. However, Joy wasn't finished. Her next remark seemed to strike a nerve even deeper. She pressed, "But isn't that what most of Hollywood is doing, living off old glories instead of creating new ones?" Don Johnson's calm demeanor began to crack. His face, which had been relaxed moments before, now showed signs of irritation. The exchange was starting to feel uncomfortable, not only for Johnson but also for the rest of the panel. Johnson's body language shifted. He leaned slightly forward, staring at Behar with a mixture of disbelief and frustration. "You know, Joy," he responded, his voice tinged with a sharper edge, "I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying." The rest of the co-hosts, sensing the tension rising, quickly tried to interject and lighten the mood, but it was too late. The conversation had taken a personal turn. Joy Behar, notorious for her unfiltered opinions, wasn't backing down. "I just don't see it as something to be proud of. I mean, look at some of these actors. They're just trading on their old image," she pressed. Her words, though well-intentioned, felt pointed, and Don Johnson had had enough. The audience watched in disbelief as Johnson's frustration boiled over. He stood up abruptly, pushing his chair back with force. "You know what, Joy, I don't have to sit here and take this," he said, his voice rising in volume. The studio was stunned into silence. No one expected this kind of reaction, least of all from the seasoned actor, who had long been known for his cool, collected demeanor. But this time, he wasn't going to let the jab slide. As Johnson made his way towards the stage exit, the other co-hosts, now visibly uncomfortable, tried to calm him down. Whoopi Goldberg, always the peacemaker, stood up and attempted to defuse the situation. "Don, come on, don't go," she said. "Let's talk it out." But Johnson, clearly agitated, continued walking toward the exit, shaking his head. "I'm done here," he muttered as he stormed off the set. The cameras followed him, capturing the awkward moment as the crew quickly shifted to cut to commercial. The immediate aftermath was chaotic. Backstage, producers scrambled to figure out what had just happened. On air, the show cut to a commercial break, but the tension in the studio lingered. The audience was left in stunned silence, unsure of what to make of the sudden departure. When the show returned, the atmosphere was noticeably different. The co-hosts were visibly shaken, and Whoopi attempted to regain control of the conversation. "Well, that was a broken bar unexpected," Whoopi said, trying to inject some levity into the situation. But it was clear that the vibe had shifted. Joy Behar, for her part, seemed genuinely taken aback by Johnson's reaction. "I didn't mean to upset him," she said, though her tone suggested that she wasn't entirely sure what had gone wrong. "I was just asking a question. I wasn't attacking him." It was a moment of genuine confusion, and it appeared that both parties were left to figure out what had just transpired. Fans on social media were quick to react, with many expressing their surprise and disappointment at how the interview had unfolded. Some sided with Joy Behar, arguing that she was simply doing her job by asking tough questions. Others sympathized with Don Johnson, saying that Behar's question was too personal and veered too close to criticizing his career rather than discussing it in a constructive way. The debate about the incident quickly turned into a viral topic. Fans of Don Johnson rallied behind him, with many calling for an apology from Behar. They argued that his decades-long career deserved more respect, and that questioning his relevance in Hollywood was uncalled for. Others defended Behar, saying she was just being direct and that Johnson had overreacted. Regardless of where one stood, it was clear that the clash had struck a nerve. Don Johnson, meanwhile, remained silent in the days following the confrontation. He did not make any public statements regarding the incident, leaving fans and media alike to speculate about his thoughts on the matter. Some believed that Johnson was simply taking time to cool off, while others thought that he might be using the moment to fuel his next project, knowing that the drama would garner him attention. Joy Behar, on the other hand, made a brief comment on The View during the following episode, addressing the incident. "I didn't mean to upset Don," she said, "but sometimes things get heated. I just asked a question that I thought was relevant. If he didn't like it, I can't control that." While she didn't apologize for her approach, it was clear that she was trying to smooth things over with the audience and her co-hosts. The tension continued to linger in the media, with several entertainment outlets diving deep into the potential causes of the confrontation. Some suggested that Johnson's ego had been bruised by the question, while others pointed out that Behar's tendency to challenge her guests might have been the catalyst for the stormy exchange. Either way, the fallout from the clash seemed to be more intense than anyone had anticipated. Behind the scenes, reports indicated that there were no immediate plans to have Don Johnson return to The View. Sources close to the show mentioned that the actor's departure had left a bad taste, and producers were uncertain about how to proceed with a potential follow-up interview. However, some suggested that Johnson might eventually return to resolve the matter, perhaps in a more controlled environment. As the days passed, the incident became the subject of countless talk shows, podcasts, and viral video clips. Clips of Johnson storming off The View were shared millions of times across platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Fans continued to weigh in, with many speculating on whether this would affect Johnson's public image in the long run. Some wondered if the confrontation had even been scripted, while others believed it was an authentic outburst that caught everyone off guard. In the midst of the drama, one of Johnson's old co-stars from Miami Vice tweeted their support, saying, "Sometimes, the media can be tough on our legends. Don Johnson has earned the right to speak his mind." This tweet added fuel to the fire, with many fans praising the actor for sticking up for himself. It was yet another example of how the media tends to exploit tension for clicks, even when the fallout is far from constructive. Joy Behar, meanwhile, faced her own backlash, though it was not as intense as Johnson's. Many people took to social media to criticize her tone and approach during the interview. Some felt that her questioning had been unnecessarily sharp, especially considering Johnson's stature in Hollywood. Still, others defended her, saying that her directness was what made The View so compelling and that her job was to ask the hard questions. The controversy also sparked conversations about the nature of talk show interviews in general. Was it right for hosts like Behar to push guests to their limits in the name of entertainment, or was this kind of confrontation indicative of a larger issue in how the media treats older male actors, especially those who have been out of the spotlight for some time? The incident ultimately became a case study in media dynamics and celebrity interactions. Don Johnson's outburst was emblematic of a larger trend where stars, especially older ones, are often pushed into uncomfortable corners by the media, all for the sake of ratings and drama. This clash became a prime example of how these interactions are often more about spectacle than meaningful discussion. Over the following weeks, Don Johnson's name continued to circulate in the news, though it was unclear whether the confrontation with Joy Behar would have lasting repercussions for his career. Some believed it could be a short-lived controversy, while others felt it would become a defining moment in his later years in the industry. For The View, the clash with Don Johnson was a reminder of the fine line that talk show hosts must walk. On one hand, they are expected to ask tough questions that elicit real responses, but on the other, they must be mindful of their guests' limits and avoid crossing the line into disrespect. The episode sparked a larger conversation about the ethics of celebrity interviews and the role of talk show hosts in shaping public narratives. As the year went on, Don Johnson continued to focus on his acting career, taking on new roles in both television and film. His fanbase remained loyal, and despite the heated moment on The View, many still viewed him as one of Hollywood's enduring stars. Whether or not he would return to The View remained a mystery, but fans were hopeful that the incident wouldn't define his legacy. The View, on the other hand, carried on as usual. The co-hosts continued to bring in high-profile guests and navigate the complex dynamics of live television. For them, the confrontation with Don Johnson became just another moment in the long history of controversial interviews that had come before. Still, it was clear that the fallout from this particular exchange was more intense than many had anticipated. In the end, the stormy clash between Don Johnson and Joy Behar served as a reminder of the unpredictable nature of live television. What begins as a routine interview can quickly spiral into chaos, leaving everyone involved to pick up the pieces afterward. It also highlighted the fine balance that must be maintained between entertainment and respect. The incident may have been a one-time moment of tension, but its lasting impact on the media landscape was undeniable. Both Johnson and Behar emerged from it with lessons learned, whether they wanted to admit it or not. For viewers, it was yet another chapter in the ongoing saga of celebrity interviews, where nothing is ever quite as it seems. As the years go by, Don Johnson's career will continue to evolve. Whether or not he returns to The View remains to be seen, but one thing is for sure: he will always be remembered for his iconic roles, his long-lasting influence on Hollywood, and, now, his fiery exit from one of the most famous talk shows in America. In the end, the clash between Don Johnson and Joy Behar was a reminder of the power of celebrity interviews. The drama, the tension, and the emotions that come with it leave lasting impressions. For both Johnson and Behar, the fallout from this moment would likely shape their interactions with the media and the future, each learning from the other's approach, but never forgetting that fiery moment on The View. As time went on, the conversation surrounding Don Johnson's departure from The View became less about the confrontation itself and more about the broader issue of celebrity interviews. The incident became a symbol of the growing tension between celebrities and the media. Fans began to ask, were hosts going too far in their pursuit of entertainment? Were celebrities expected to endure questions that crossed the line from curiosity to disrespect? Meanwhile, The View continued its daily broadcasts, but it was clear that the clash with Don Johnson had left a mark. The show, which thrives on candid, often heated exchanges, now had to deal with the fallout of what had been a particularly uncomfortable interview. Producers, co-hosts, and even the audience had witnessed an emotional moment that highlighted the sometimes volatile relationships between Hollywood stars and the media. Joy Behar, in particular, faced some backlash from fans and critics alike. Her critics argued that she had overstepped by pushing Don Johnson too far. Some even suggested that her questioning of his career was unnecessary, especially given the context of his decades-long success. However, Joy remained defiant, stating that her job was to ask tough questions and hold celebrities accountable for their actions. For her, the confrontation was just part of the job. The fallout from the incident didn't just stay in the realm of social media chatter. It also sparked discussions on talk shows and podcasts, with many dissecting the nuances of celebrity interviews. Wasn't fair to ask Don Johnson about his relevance in Hollywood at his age. Some argued that it wasn't. Others contended that the question was legitimate, considering how the industry often moves on from actors once they hit a certain age. For Don Johnson, the encounter was a moment of reflection. He had spent years in the public eye, often known for his smooth demeanor and ability to navigate difficult situations with grace. But this time, something in him snapped. It wasn't just Behar's question that bothered him it was the implication that his career had somehow stalled or been reduced to nostalgia. This was a man who had worked tirelessly in the entertainment industry for decades, and he felt that his accomplishments deserved more respect. In the days following the incident, Don Johnson's fans rallied behind him. Support poured in on social media, with many fans expressing their disappointment in how he was treated during the interview. A popular hashtag, #RespectDonJohnson, began to trend, with fans sharing their favorite moments from his career and defending his legacy. It was clear that Johnson's fans weren't going to let the single moment overshadow his decades of hard work. Behind the scenes at The View, the aftermath of the confrontation was tense. Producers were scrambling to manage the fallout, unsure of how to proceed with the next steps. Would they bring Johnson back for a follow-up interview? Would Behar address the situation in a more formal manner? Or would the incident fade into history as just another heated moment in the show's long tenure? The uncertainty loomed large as everyone tried to figure out how to move forward. Whoopi Goldberg, one of The View's most beloved hosts, took a diplomatic approach in the aftermath. She publicly stated that the show had no ill intentions toward Don Johnson and that it was never their goal to upset him. Goldberg also emphasized the need for open communication between the show's producers and guests to prevent future misunderstandings. "We're all human," she said. "We learn from our mistakes, and we move on." As the media frenzy died down, many began to question the ethics of celebrity interviews. Were they meant to celebrate the achievements of actors like Don Johnson, or were they just opportunities for hosts to get quick sound bites and viral moments? The line between respectful conversation and media spectacle had become increasingly blurred, and the View incident was just another example of the fine line celebrities walk when they sit down for interviews. One of the more surprising responses came from fellow actor, and longtime friend of Don Johnson, Donnie Wahlberg. Wahlberg tweeted his support, stating that Johnson had been one of the classiest guys in Hollywood and that the media sometimes took advantage of celebrities to create drama. His post sparked a wave of sympathy for Johnson, as fans flooded social media with messages of support. As public opinion swirled, the entertainment industry continued to operate as usual. Don Johnson was already focused on his next project, a starring role in a new crime drama series that promised to challenge his range as an actor. His career was far from over, and the View incident was just a small bump in what had been a long and successful journey in Hollywood. Still, the controversy continued to linger in the media. Don Johnson's name was frequently mentioned in entertainment news, and many wondered if he would ever return to The View or address the confrontation publicly. Would he apologize for walking off the set, or would he continue to stand by his actions? Fans and critics alike speculated about his next move, eager to see if he would address the situation on his own terms. Some of Johnson's peers, including actors who had worked with him on past projects, came to his defense. They shared stories of Johnson's professionalism, work ethic, and dedication to his craft. "He's the kind of actor who goes the extra mile for his role," one former co-star wrote on Twitter. "It's unfortunate that people only focus on one moment and forget about everything he's done in his career." Meanwhile, Joy Behar faced mixed reactions. While some fans felt she had been unfairly criticized, others argued that she had crossed a line in her questioning. Some believed that her line of questioning had been disrespectful, given the context of Johnson's career, while others thought she was merely doing her job as a talk show host. The incident became a conversation about how much responsibility media figures should take for the way they provoke their guests. For The View, the Don Johnson episode was a reminder of the risks involved in live television. In an environment where quick-witted banter and confrontational discussions are often the norm, things don't always go as planned. While the show had been known for creating viral moments, this one was more than anyone had bargained for. It was an unpredictable and awkward situation that left everyone involved feeling uneasy. Over time, the drama from the interview seemed to fade, but its ripple effects were felt across the entertainment landscape. Don Johnson's ability to stand his ground in such a public setting became an example of his resilience. While some saw his exit as an overreaction, others admired him for taking control of the situation when things became uncomfortable. The View team, too, moved forward, but they did so with a heightened awareness of how their interactions with guests could unfold. Future interviews on the show became more carefully scripted, with producers taking extra steps to ensure that no guest would feel cornered or disrespected. It was a learning experience for everyone involved. By the end of the year, Don Johnson had returned to the spotlight with new roles and projects that emphasized his versatility as an actor. The View incident was a distant memory for many, but for Johnson, it had been a defining moment in how he handled adversity. While it may have momentarily shocked his fans, it ultimately reinforced his position as a man of conviction. In a reflective interview several months later, Johnson spoke about the incident on The View. "I don't regret standing up for myself," he said. "There are times when you just have to draw a line in the sand, and that was one of those moments." His response was measured and thoughtful, showing that he had come to terms with the fallout. The incident with Joy Behar remained a memorable moment in The View's history, but it also sparked a much-needed discussion about the ethics of celebrity interviews and how the media interacts with its stars. It reminded audiences that celebrities, despite their fame, are human beings with limits, and sometimes, those limits need to be respected. Looking back, Don Johnson's decision to walk off set was not just about one interview. It was about taking control of his narrative in an industry that often demands perfection. It was about standing up for his legacy and making sure that his voice was heard, regardless of how the media tried to spin the story. In that moment, he reminded everyone that even Hollywood legends have the right to protect their dignity. And as the years went on, the View incident became just one chapter in Don Johnson's remarkable career, a reminder of his ability to navigate challenges with grace and, when necessary, force. It was an episode that revealed the complexities of fame and the toll it takes on individuals who spend their lives in the spotlight. In the end, the drama from The View proved that Don Johnson was much more than a nostalgic icon from the 80s. He was a man of substance, one who was unafraid to stand up for himself, even in the face of controversy. And that, perhaps, was his most lasting legacy. As Don Johnson continues to evolve as an actor and a public figure, the lessons learned from the View incident will likely stay with him. His response to the pressure and media scrutiny demonstrated the power of self-respect and the importance of maintaining one's integrity in the unforgiving world of Hollywood. For The View, the episode with Don Johnson serves as a reminder of the unpredictable nature of talk show interviews. It's a reminder that while their goal is to entertain, they also have a responsibility to treat their guests with respect. And, like all great television moments, it left audiences thinking about the lines between entertainment and human decency.